Hello, everyone. This is David Ellis from Universal Citizen Media, and today we are going to be doing a show on human potential. So, I have this community where people join, and every once in a while, I see some outliers in the community, and I send them a message saying, "I need to interview you. I need you to tell me everything." And so, I reached out to this very interesting soul. Her name is Renata, and we have her in studio right now. And I need to share her with the rest of you guys. So, Renata, I'm just going to bring you on screen. Hello, Renata.
Hello, David. Thank you so much for having me on. I much appreciate it.
Okay, Renata, to say that you're an interesting person might be an understatement. Why don't you tell the audience everything about yourself?
Right. Where to begin? I understand we have some similarities, so we're going to look at those. I started life out as a child prodigy, a musical child prodigy. So I kind of walked up to a piano and started playing when I was 3 years old. So my mom grabbed me and off I went to music school. And that ended with a double degree from the Faculty of Music in Toronto and a career in performing and teaching as a pianist, a vocalist, and conductor.
Hmm.
And then I had an accident with my hand about 12 years ago, which made it impossible to play anymore. And so when God closes one door, guess what?
Hmm.
A million other doors open up. So I started to explore left-right brain synergies, and it turned into a career in marketing and promotion. But it was based in creativity, which is the only reason I could handle it. And
Hmm.
then when that came to a close, and all the while, I had been studying with my mentor, Jonathan C.R. Davies, and a particular modality called the Unity Bubble. And concurrently, I became authorized as a master Unity Bubble facilitator. So I have been doing that. I've transitioned out of all kinds of marketing stuff, etc. I was able to buy my freedom, sold my place, and moved to the country where I have peace and quiet and I can do whatever I basically want, which is help humanity. And I volunteer a lot with connecting consciousness, and I work on a donation basis only. I was asked to do that a few months ago so that everyone is able to access the modality that I'm able to offer, which is an eighth dimensional energy field. And I'm sure you're going to ask me more about that. So how is that to begin with?
That's a lot to unpack. Okay, so let's take it together because this is a show on human potential. So
Excellent.
you came in with musical skills. You
I
they're
did do.
they're just hardwired on you. Whenever people talk about human potential, or when people talk about like star seed children or gifted people, they often tend to think that God has blessed them with some special gift that the rest of us don't have. Speak about that for a moment.
I think we're all blessed,
Hmm.
especially those who have the opportunity to develop their potential. So to be born to parents that give them the opportunity to do that rather than it being quashed or not allowed to flourish,
Hmm.
which is paramount. So I understand with the selection process. I'm not sure how fine tuned it can be when we come in, but whatever it is that we choose, if we're coming through with a set of talents or abilities, one would think that we would choose parents that would allow us to develop those talents and abilities. And whether or not those talents and abilities are the be all and end all in that person's life, I don't think so. I think they're always a tool to explore consciousness in a different way, in a deeper way than perhaps others, or if they hadn't had those talents, would be able to. So,
Hmm.
and starseed children, yeah, there's I mean, my daughter, it was written all over her. I just knew, and by the time she was 3, I knew she was going to be a writer, because she would sit there and play with a salt and pepper shaker for 2 hours and have a whole script, you know. And yeah, of course she's a writer now. So yeah, they come in with talents and abilities, and if they are given the opportunity to develop them, then it's a great, great, great gift. But everyone has talents and potential. That's kind of my
You
feeling.
know, that's a very good point that you've made. A lot of parents, and this is why we try to push the concept of conscious parenting, right? Because everyone has talents and gifts. Some of them are not readily observable. Some of them develop a little bit later. But what I wanted to get away from is this concept that people think in this life there are winners and there are losers. There are no
Mm,
winners or losers. They're just people who spotted what it is that they came here to do a little earlier on. And then there are people who were actively blocked from pursuing what they came here to do, right? And then there's a concept of choice where you either accept it or you reject the barriers and the blockages, right? But everybody has the human potential that's within them or innate on them, okay? And so what usually happens is that there are usually stumbling blocks that will stop you from getting there. In your case, I suspect, from what I can tell, uh, if you were allowed to pursue music to its fullest actualization, I suspect you might have done so before. I suspect you might have done so. There are these are the nuances, right?
mm, mm-hmm.
So I had a professor once who told me you can tell the age of a soul by the number of skills it comes into this incarnation with. Okay? And then there are the newer souls that come into this incarnation and they don't know, they're stumbling around. Okay?
Mm, yeah.
They're stumbling around. And I am a firm believer in this concept of DNA activation. Okay? I don't like to put it that way. I hate those terms. But I think you have innate inside yourselves potentialities that a lot of people don't actively seek out. They
Mm,
just figure, like, one of these days, I'll just find something to do. And then
mm,
that's another thing as well. If you can't find something to do and you don't know what to do, it may be one of two things. And I tend towards the latter. It may be that you're confused, or it may be that you're good at so many things because you're such an old soul that you don't know actively what to do. Because here's the problem: the whole birthing process is a process of forgetting, right?
exactly.
But cells don't forget. DNA doesn't forget. There's an esoteric aspect of DNA that comes in, right? And so I do believe that people have memories on board. But with regard to your experience, um, early on in the show, you said a number of things that you did. That's a lot of stuff.
That's just the that's just the tip of the iceberg, Dave. It really is. It really is. Um, yeah. Let's Yes, everybody has a potentiality. I think what I wanted to add to what I said before and what you just said now is the environment in which we are being born into
Hmm.
is not an environment where these potentialities
Hmm.
are searched out,
Yeah.
or children are helped at all. In
Hmm.
fact, it's the opposite. They're slammed if they're not doing rote work in school and memorizing garbage that they're going to forget in an hour. That's no education. And so it's not particularly the fault, so to speak, of these who are coming, who are a little bit lost.
Mm-hmm.
It's they're just not coming into the world. Is not an environment in general, unless you have these beautiful parents that actually are conscious and are actively supporting the development of this child. Like, I have a very dear friend who's one of the 13 indigenous tribal leaders in the world, Chief Ivanekwa, and she always tells me about how in their society, in the indigenous societies, it takes a whole village to raise a child, and they immediately sense out the potentialities, and they also have 27 different genders, which is not particularly, like, it's not the woke gender thing. It's uh it's a respectful uh, delineation of a person. So, for example, I have masculine tendencies within me.
Mm-hmm.
So I would be wakame, wahame. I think it's wahame. So it's just a woman that is more a doer, a more,
Mm-hmm.
an achiever kind of a person, as opposed to a woman who is a nurturer, who loves to nurture children, and so it's a different kind of role. So it's not exactly a gender, but it is a role. So in these societies,
Mm-hmm.
when the children come along, everyone has eyes on, the wellness and the expression of this little one, because they know that it's going to be an aspect of them, right? It's a community of oneness. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
I was actually quite gifted in terms of, and I say gifted as in a gift was given to me to teach children hatha yoga, right? When I was a
Mm,
little bit younger, I used to teach a
mm,
kids class, and the
mm,
kids would come in, and it was a pleasure for me because these kids have no fear on board. They don't know what fear is. They just know
mm,
that I want to get this done. I want to do the headstand. I want to bend this way. I want to do this. I want to do that. I want to be able to accomplish this. And when I taught them, the joy on their face of expanding their physical limitations, right? Their mental limitations, their limitations of control and body control and balance and so on. And you could see them growing in front of you, right? So
mm,
I also taught children martial arts as well, and you
mm,
see them growing in front of you, and you see character is not something that you develop by going to learn it in school. I could
mm.
write some stuff on the blackboard saying, "Be brave,
Yeah.
follow your heart, follow your dreams." I could write this on the blackboard, but unless you hardwire it and start activating the individual on a very experiential level, it does not, the individual doesn't embody it. And I see these children, when it is that they left my class, applying. I saw them applying the concepts in everyday life. So people say, okay, it's a yoga class. How is that going to help them? No, no, no. It absolutely does, because it develops in them the will to try and fall, get up, try and fall, and continue down that path until they get it right. It
Mhm,
absolutely does. And I've seen it a real time. So I think in terms of human potential, there's an aspect of it that needs the activation, right? And some of us come pre-activated. So let's talk about people who are pre-activated with their gifts on board. How does that happen? I mean, they're supposed to forget, right? You're supposed to come in as a clean slate, but that's not
yeah.
always the case.
Um, no, not always the case. And I believe, sorry, I believe in my case, sorry, just need a little bit of water.
Sure.
Um, I can't explain it, David, but I walked up to a piano when I was 3 years old, and we just happened to have one because I have two older sisters, and there was one in the house, and they were both learning. They were 9 and 10 years older than me, but I was 3 years old, and I walked up to the piano and I started playing it.
Hmm.
So where did that come from? Who knows? I must have carried it through with me. So it's, a past incarnation. I also have had situations where I've done sessions with a friend of mine who's a native healer.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've been told that I'm this reincarnation of the third Dalai Lama's master student. So I'm lying there and Errol says, "Oh my God, do you know what happened?" I'm like, "What? What?" He says, "Your face just started morphing into this little old monk," right? While you were out. And I'm like, "Oh, okay, that's interesting." So whatever is the energy that is this expression that we are,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to come through if that is what we came here to do. And actually, sometimes adversity helps, because then you're more and more determined. You're more, and it does. Unfortunately, it's the trauma, the traumatization that creates the diamond. It's like the traumatization of having the sand grate against the pearl and the oyster is what creates the pearl, right? Or the friction.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, it's great to be born into a family where the parents support, where that where the child can grow. So I was able to do that with the music, but in terms of the spirituality, are you kidding? 400 years of clergy on my mom's side. So anything that wasn't, church related. So
I understand you. I totally get it.
yeah. So, and then when my mother realized that I had healing hands when I was about 10 or 11, she would be like, "Okay, come over here. Don't let anybody see you, but put your hands on me because it feels very good. But don't tell anybody you're doing it because somebody might find out that you're doing this. I don't want anybody to know." So it was hilarious. So she knew I would channel, but it was always like, "Don't tell anybody, but you tell me what I need to know." So
Yes, I understand exactly what you're saying, especially when you're young and you have impressions or whatever else. Uh, young children don't know the rules of society. Okay, they don't know. As an example, if you get an impression that something is about to happen, you need to stay silent, and that's the rub right there.
mm,
Because, like everything else in this world, when you deny the parts of you that are, they don't cooperate with you when you want them to. I
mhm,
know a lot of adults who spent years in suppression of themselves. And I'm talking to you women out there, you know who you are, right? Who chose to suppress the parts of yourself that
mm,
wanted expression, um, in favor of what? Of a nice normal life.
mhm.
You know that story. A lot of women have that story. And then they try to reclaim it a little bit later on when they wake up one day. It's little things make you just snap out of it, right? And they're like, this is not what I'm supposed to be doing, right? And then all of a sudden they try to reclaim it, and then it's like dragging a tire up a hill sometimes, yeah?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's actually a large aspect of the work that I do now with the Unity Bubble, because the thing is, what we experience as humans is, number one, resistances, number two, interference.
Correct.
So if I could give you something
Mm-hmm.
that is a higher energetic field than your own
Mm-hmm.
to surround you in, what's going to happen?
Entrainment. You're trained to the higher frequency. Correct.
Exactly. And it won't tolerate anything negative within, and it won't allow anything negative from without. So basically, it's that simple. It took years to co create with Unity, which is a group of ascended masters: God the Father, Yeshua, Divine Feminine, Pan, Gaia, everyone came forward to co-create this with Jonathan, my Melchizedek teacher, and he didn't realize he was a Melchizedek till it was very late in life. But he was always able to manifest weird stuff, like like there'd be a frozen pizza in the middle of the desert when he decided he wanted a pizza. so, okay, how do we do that? So with this, the whole idea is once you have this frequency, everything starts to shift into place.
Mm-hmm.
And what's not supposed to be there gets the heck out. And what's supposed to be there starts to be attracted to you. And then eventually, after it's a process, it's at least 6 months. I've never seen anybody go through it in less than 6 months. Eventually you get to a place where you are fully aligned with your higher self. There's no more resistances. There's no more interference. And when stuff happens, you're like the rubber ducky. It's okay. That's okay. You've got the toolbox to deal with it. Mm-hmm. And when things happen that are challenging emotionally, because you're in an 8th dimensional field, you process it. Like instead of 3 weeks, you'll process it in 3 days.
Correct.
So this is the beautiful work that I'm able to do. It's foolproof. It's not me. I'm just the messenger girl, right? I'm just allowed to transfer this frequency, and I'm a facilitator. So because I've done it so many times, I kind of know what people are going to go through. And of course, everyone has their particular challenges and their particular traumas. So it's basically betrayal, abandonment, lack of trust, and lack of self-esteem, self-worth, which all starseeds come in with, right? Combination thereof. So this particular modality, which they tried to suppress when Jonathan first came out with it, he was approached by some certain individuals and said, okay, listen, just don't make it public. We're going to let you, you can just do it, word of mouth kind of thing, but don't try to get public with it or that'll be the last time you do. So since he passed away and since things have, just the veils have been lifted and things are different now, and I'm fearless. I don't care. You can't, whatever. I know there's no such thing as death. There's just transition. So I'm out here just yelling it from the rooftops. Hey, there's this thing, there's this modality you can do, and it's super easy. And if I could, David, I would just bubble the world. And that's the way Jonathan felt, but you can't. You have to be open and willing, because it's a free will thing. And some people aren't done their suffering. They want to
suffer. Listen, there's an old Japanese proverb. The road is clear in front of you. Why do you throw rocks in it? All right. And a lot of people throw rocks in their own path. There's a number of things that I want to cover here because we mentioned a couple of things. The first thing is this concept of our shared reality, this shared experience that we're having, where people can choose to perceive the barriers as unstoppable or immovable, I should say, and perceive themselves as stoppable, right? Or they could choose to perceive the barriers as movable and themselves as unstoppable. This change in perspective, this shift in perspective is a difficult one for most people, and that's what keeps, people like myself or yourself and everybody else employed. Right? Right. This shifted perspective is a difficult one for most people because they perceive, and this is the commercialization of spirituality and psychotherapy. Mm-hmm. Okay, because I call bullshit on even the things that I have been a part of. Okay, there is a commercialization of psychotherapy and consciousness exploration, right? Which is doing a disservice to humanity. Because in psychology, you say you gotta go to a therapist and let me put it, work your shit out. You see how that sounds, right? It sounds like a mandate. It sounds like a
Horrible.
mandate. It sounds like something that is like very difficult to do. When I have found that sometimes for a lot of people, they just wake up one day and say, "Oh shit, my perspective is just shifted." Right? What happened? I'm sure I had low self-esteem when I went to sleep. Now all of a sudden I just woke up and I'm good. Like what happened? So there is a commercialization of this concept of therapy, of this concept of healing work, right? Right, and everybody makes it sound like, oh my god, this is something that you have to do for your own good and stuff like that. Listen, people will get enlightened. Nobody enlightens anybody. That's the first thing.
No.
Okay? People become aware and enlightened in their own time. It wasn't you that made them come into your office. It wasn't even the marketing. It was a choice that they made. And so I think all of this is wrapped up on the healer side and the therapist side in a kind of arrogance. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I am here to do the work with these people and banish ignorance from the land.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
say this because when I was in school learning stuff, a lot of stuff, too much stuff, this is the perspective that they gave to the students. Go forth and banish ignorance and trauma from the land.
Hmm.
And this is a problem that we have in communities. So I absolutely like your approach because it's simple. It's like, hi, did you know that?
Yeah.
You don't have to do this.
Yeah. Exactly. And I hear you 300%. And that is the first place things get screwed up is in school, right?
Hmm.
Because they create egomaniacal people going out into the world thinking that they can fix everything. And then then they're going to be amazing, right? When what I was taught actually through music as well, because I always studied with brilliant pianists, right? Nobody ever told me that I couldn't do something.
Hmm.
They were giving me the skills and the tools to get rid of any bad habits and to learn the skills so that I could make the music that I heard in my head.
Hmm.
And so when I was always treated like I was already a musician, but
Yes.
I was just honing the skills to become the potential that I already was. And similarly, when I work with people who come to me, I always say, "Hey, I'm just the delivery girl. This is between
Exactly.
you and consciousness. And I'm just here to support your process. I'm just here to hold the space for you and to share with you because you're already perfect. We're just going to get rid of the restrictions and we're going to or the resistances and the interferences. And then you can do you, baby. You
Correct.
know, and in however many months it takes you to complete, because we have 8 infusions into the bubble, in however many months it takes you to get to effortless living, believe me, of the hundreds of people that I've worked with, I've never not seen people get to effortless living. It's because they've made the decision, just like you said, Dave. They made the decision to walk into working with me. That was their conscious decision, which is why we can't bubble the world, because people have to, it wouldn't work. They have to make the conscious choice. They have to, and they have to work at it. They have to express the intention.
You know, Renata, what you're saying is that's why I said we have similarities. I totally understood everything you just said.
Thank you.
When it was that people decided, oh, I'm a healer. Oh, the cringe. All right.
Yeah.
You're a facilitator more than anything else, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so when people decide that they are healers, they go do whatever courses and stuff that they do. I'll give you an example of on my own skin. Okay. So in training psychotherapists or counselors, right? they can choose a particular slant that they're going down. Okay. Let's say you are a Freudian psychotherapist.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Then you follow the theories of Freud. Okay. Of the number of uncomfortable theories that there are out there, I urge the audience, if you guys are listening, go read up on Freud. Okay. Because you will have to see the individual who is coming into your office from a particular viewpoint, which is absolutely disadvantageous to the whole being that that person is.
300%.
Okay. If you are seeing, and I'm going to put it in the spiritual communities as well. Okay. There are too many energy healers who see people as broken. Okay. When I was, listen, when I was practicing, okay,
Mm.
I had about 293 active cases in my office.
Wow.
It was like doing social work, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And and I say this in best vein for you guys to understand. When people came into my office, I just treated them like people.
Mm-hmm.
Stop looking at people like patients. Stop
Yeah.
looking at people like some broken thing that you need to fix, right?
100%.
And your patient outcomes, your client outcomes are going to be so much more effective than when you just sit them down and have a conversation as equal partners in a process. I'm going to repeat that for the guys in the back. As equal partners in the process, because what happens is that there's a power dynamic that happens between the therapist and the client. I am coming to this person to save me, like the priest in church. No, I am your brother. We are sitting here and we're gonna work some shit out because we're family. That
Yep.
is the mindset.
100%. And I would take it one step further. I'm going to tell you how much I have actually learned from my clients, from
Mhm.
the people I've worked with.
Correct.
They blow me away sometimes. I'm like, oh, wow. So it's not a one-way street. It's, and anyone who puts this hat on, yeah, no, 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 no. The opposite. I just got a beautiful person a lovely woman who contacted me from Australia, and demonic entities, blockages, she's so frustrated, whatever. And I'm like, you know what? We got this, no worries, so what that means to me is that you have something really special inside that is experiencing interference, and it's caused like ongoing resistance within you. So once we get rid of all of that stuff, and then she's like, oh well, this is amazing. And then we shared some energetic background, like I've got some Egyptian stuff going on back there, and so does she. And it was more a conversation between sisters that had just, long lost sisters that have met once again.
Mm-hmm.
And 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 that just makes everybody feel comfortable too. It's like, I'm not something that's up high up here. I am so grateful that I was able to be mentored by Jonathan. I cried tears of joy the day that I got the authorization to be a master facilitator with through his whose wife was doing it then, because he had already passed. And and what I offer specifically is because while Jonathan was alive, I was channeling for him when he was doing work on the planet. So when he passed, I know his frequency, and I said, "Listen, I have absolutely no idea why you're asking me to do this, because I don't, I'm a piano player, I'm a singer, And his promise to me was, every time you sit down to do this work, don't you worry, I'm going to be there. And you know what? It doesn't matter. I sit down, I tune in, there they are. And whatever needs to happen just happens in the moment, because giving the space to whoever I'm working with to allow them to connect with the Melchizedek and unity. And I'm just the boots on the ground, right? So it's kind of like we're bringing the band back together again, you know?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the creative principle, the creative force that flows within every
Mm,
one of us.
mm.
The concept of creating or co-creating or bringing into manifestation, right? This thing that is inside your mind, because everybody is a little bit pregnant, men and women alike. Okay, I get pregnant several times a week. I have to run to the computer. Okay, I get pregnant several times a week. Right, things need to come out, and when they need to come out, they're like, I want to be birthed into this world, and I run to the computer and I make that stuff happen. Okay, so there are a lot of people walking around with pregnancies in like the third trimester, right? And they don't know how to make to go through that laboring process and birthing process. So we're going to be the midwives for a little bit, shall we?
Absolutely. Well, it's curious that you call it a pregnancy because, it's, I might be pushing a few boundaries here, but I've heard you guys talking with Andrew stuff. It's very similar to a sexual energy. It's an excitement.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that when I start to feel like, oh boy, here we go, it's a creative orgasm.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, oh boy, this is going to be good. Because it goes through your whole body. You can't stop it. And it's like the Gurdjieffian concept, the horse, the cart, and the driver, the emotional center, intellectual center, and the instinctive center.
Correct.
It's when everything lines up and your horse is in front of the cart and the driver's on top of the cart and you can go, right? It's different from when you might have an inkling of something,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not that full on, oh yeah, right? So you're developing that connection. So maybe just the intellectual center has fallen into alignment with this, or maybe just the emotional center. But when all three centers hit the jackpot, it's like, right?
Correct.
Wow, here we go, right? And then it enters into the collective, right? So we're back to the collective experience. So it's like you're downloading it from the infinite because
Correct.
nothing exists that hasn't already existed, and
Uh-huh.
then you're re-uploading it back to share it with brothers and sisters everywhere.
Renata, I have had what you're talking about several times. I have a notebook by my
Mm.
bedside, right, that a friend Nikki of mine gave to me because she knows that I would go to sleep, dream of something, and I'm like, oh shit, I can't wait until I wake up. Let's write this down, get some sleep. And this is how I got a lot of sleep. Because here's the thing about it, right? Inspiration, the muse, right? The muse could be a demon depending on who you are, right? Inspiration comes at the weirdest times. At the
Yeah,
weirdest times, like you're
yeah.
stepping out of the bathtub, right?
Oh
Right?
yeah,
Like you're suddenly like, oh, like
yeah. Okay,
okay.
can you hold on to that for a second?
Can I dry off first?
Yeah,
Right? Can I dry off first? Can I get so
yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah.
inspiration comes at the weirdest times.
Or the other one is, I'm driving the car now. Can you bring it back to when it's safe? You know? But no, I hear you 300%. And I actually, that's why it's not good for you, but I've got one of those EMF things on my phone. But when I get visions or something, it's usually just before I wake up. And so I think we're like, right. I mean, Andrew would tell us a lot about this. The dream time is the real time. Coming back into whatever it is that we're here, into the matrix, is where all this interference happens, right? So that's why we're forgetting. But if you can catch that time when you're just coming out of that dream time, and I just push the record button on my phone and I start to talk. And I like force myself, okay, come on, every single image, just describe this and it will come. And then afterwards, you know exactly what it is. Like it's imprinted. All you need is that little tiny word or whatever it was to trigger the memory of that. And then I also find, I don't know about you, Dave, but I also find that with time, if I'm consistent with noting down the visions and stuff, there's a theme. There's an overarching theme.
Yeah, I understand you. When I was a lot younger, I used to paint and
Mm,
draw. Um, and we're talking about the development of the creative process. I actually
mm,
won competitions in
wow.
fine arts competitions. There wasn't anything artistic that I couldn't do. And then I grew up, and my parents were like, I was actually making money because I worked for this clothing company. I would design and put plastisol on shirts and paint them
Mm,
with fabric paint and stuff like that.
cool.
And I made money because, every creation was like a fingerprint. It was a unique creation.
Amazing.
And my parents were afraid at that time that if he continues to make money, then he's not going to go to university, is he?
Mm,
Right? So, all right, they tried to kibosh that. So, anyway, I wanted a scholarship to go to school, right?
mm,
Because I learned to meditate at 13 years old. It's too
mm.
early, just so that we can, I wouldn't suggest that you go put your kids in
No,
meditation at 13 years old, right?
yeah.
All right. And I won the scholarship, and my choice to was to do English literature and philosophy.
Oh, just like my daughter. Yeah. Oh
And
my
it's
God. I know
this,
that
this is
mindset. Yeah.
right. I chose to do English literature and philosophy, and I remembered that creativity, no matter where you go, once it has gotten a hold of you, it doesn't matter what you change into. And I've been
Mm,
through many, 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 many phases. Okay. So I went into English literature and philosophy, and I was able to write poetry on the spot. Okay. Like iambic pentameter was my thing. I'm going to just, I would write poetry on the spot, and everybody is like, "You believe that he chose a philosophy and an English literature degree? What's wrong with him?" Right? Okay, so my postgrad was in counseling psychology, right? First of all, right? So I went into that, right? And then I got a lot of blowback from professors because I'm like, if I adapt or ingest Freudian psychoanalysis, I'm not quite sure how that is going to help the clients. If I um, make it make sense for
yeah.
me, right? Make it make sense. You are damaged because you saw your mother and father having sex, and it has
Yeah.
been the primal trauma. Me telling you that is not going to help you. Okay? Me trying to treat you for something like that is not going to help you. And so, okay, this is what so I had blowback, and then I went into more marketable subjects. I did
Hmm.
an MBA. I was going to be the the business guy.
Yeah.
Oh, but the creativity kept following me everywhere. And so when people were looking at solving a problem one way, I was looking at it laterally. Does that make sense?
Totally. Totally.
Which is
Totally.
how I ended up in corporate and being useful in corporate, because when you have creativity on board, there are some base skill sets that you have to um, nurture as a child. If you nurture a child's creativity, that child's potentials are limitless. No matter what that child does, I don't care if that child is a janitor in the school, that child will find a way to make that janitorial
Oh,
that
yeah.
janitorial job unique and special.
That's right. Creativity is transferable, right? It
Correct.
will ooze from you, right? Just like carbon dioxide, when you breathe in oxygen, it's going to come out of you. That's who you are. And I would venture to say,
Mhm.
Dave, that you are probably a very balanced brained individual, because it requires the creative right side and a very active left side to actually achieve a lot of the things that you've been describing. So for me, I'm so right brained, I should actually fall over when I stand up. There's like, don't ask me to do, like, no, like, no. So I should just be walking around like that. But and the other thing I wanted to say when you said poetry, well, guess what? I also have a collection of poetry that I'm in the middle of publishing. It actually has a foreword by Dr. Bill Bissett, who's Canada's poet laureate, and knows, he's a colleague of Margaret Atwood's, and she loves his work, etc. Anyway, so it's all in that, and I've been sitting on it for
And
a long
you know I'm going to read that. I am going to buy that.
and it's actually, a lot of it was processing, was when I was learning to, I didn't know I was channeling, and I would be writing poetry in the middle of teaching a classroom, because I also taught music in the Catholic School Board in Toronto for several years when my daughter was little, because I needed a gig that, you know, I could stop at 3:30 and pick her up, you know what I'm saying? So I would be writing poetry, and there'd be kids, I'd give them something to do for 20 minutes, 35 kids in the classroom screaming, and there I am writing something up from the profoundest, and sometimes I would write words and I'm like, what does that mean? And
Uh-huh.
then I'd have to go back and I'd have to look up the word and go, oh yeah, that fits. So
You
I had
know,
no idea I was channeling, actually. Yeah.
because people think channeling is like you go into this dark room and like
Hmm.
there are candles and some guy's eyes are rolling up into the back of his head. The
No.
woman's eyes are rolling. No, channeling can be on the spot um,
Yeah.
conversation, actually, right?
300.
All right, which is why I told you at the beginning of this broadcast, I don't plan interviews. We're going to riff and it's going to be perfect.
Yeah.
All right. And this is basically, and channeling, I think it requires a little bit of self confidence
Mm.
and self belief that what's coming through is exactly what needs to come through in the moment. Okay. When you give yourself over to the space and you do not try, you do.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, don't we love Yoda? He's my hero. Yeah.
Correct. You
Yeah.
do not try, you do. Either you don't. That was the best part of Star Wars.
Best,
Not
best. If I
try.
were ever going to
Do.
have a tattoo, which I have not succumbed to yet, but it would have been Yoda.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, I agree. I 100% agree because the teachings of Star Wars were very, very deep.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
because the Force is not something that you, for want of a better way of putting this, all puns intended, force.
No,
Okay,
no,
you do
no,
not force the Force. You
no. It was
flow the
based on
Force.
yeah, and it was based on James Campbell, Hero with a Thousand Faces, right? So,
Mm,
it was probably the best disclosure, and I don't know what possessed Spielberg, because I think he went the other way
yeah.
later. But there was that was a great gift, a great, great gift to the young ones, to be able to see and talk about human potential. When Luke, when he's on, when Yoda is on Luke's back in the swamp, right, and he's trying to lift the ship,
Hmm.
right? Do not try, do, and just, that was just so beautiful. It's all about intention and belief and understanding, and removing the blockages and the restrictions. It was it was one of the most profound things I'd ever seen done in film, and
It
I've loved
was.
it ever since. Yeah.
It was. And I think a whole study. Look, I wish I could write a thesis on that,
Mm,
on that movie. Not the Disney version, just this version. Right. The old Star Wars. Because there
yeah.
were layers and layers to the
Layers.
concept of
Absolutely.
energy, right? So many teachings were in there, like the concept of the force of
Oh,
connected energy. Okay. right, of energy flows and as opposed to energy manipulations. And on that subject, I actually want to say something. Um, a lot of people can benefit in terms of human potential if they listen to when the universe speaks. Would
Oh,
you like to know one of my most profound moments?
please.
Okay, there was this little girl that I was teaching in my kids' class, right?
Mm.
Right? And like she didn't have any front teeth or anything like that. She was this super cute little girl, right? And we were doing this class and so on. And I was trying to get one of the little kids to do a headstand. And yes, I got like little kids to be able to do amazing things. If you want to check that out, it's on my Facebook. You will
Mm.
see kids doing amazing things.
Wonderful.
And I'm like, and the child was in fear, not getting it, right? And then this little girl, who is the youngest person in my class, walks over to the 16-year-old and says, "Look, just put your head like this and just do and stop being afraid. Stop being afraid." And I'm like, I'm looking at this kid. I'm like,
Yeah.
she in that moment saw, right, everything in that moment. Now, do I believe that this little kid just somehow transmogrified into Yoda? Right? No, I don't. But I do believe that when the universe wants to say something to you or wants to intervene,
Mhm.
you let it. Right? I looked at this cute little kid and I'm like, "This, you didn't go through yoga teacher training, did you? Because that was excellent. The way she expressed herself gave the 16-year-old who's like wow, 11 years a senior, right?
Mm.
11 12 years a senior, the confidence to get that thing done. In that moment, that child was a better teacher than I was. You learn these things. And she
Yeah.
gave me a technique that I didn't have before.
Mm.
So when the universe is speaking to you, and it may be not just a little kid with no teeth and stuff like that, no front teeth. Um, it may be something like the wind blowing against your body, letting you know,
Yes.
oh,
Yes.
by the way, Mr. Busy Professional,
Yes.
the earth is still here. In case you're wondering, just check out the sky, see how blue it
Yeah.
is. When
Yeah.
the universe is speaking to you, and you need to listen, and that's how you expand your potential. Because when you listen and you are in co-creation of the universe, it speaks to you more and more, flows through you. You're
Absolutely.
part of it. You're not apart from it.
Absolutely. 300%. And I always think, like you have to ask. You tune in and ask. I always think of the guys, the angel sitting on top of my refrigerator, going, "Oh yeah, yeah." Not again. Why isn't she asking? Right? You could just see them sitting up there, going, "Oh, just just ask." You don't have to beat your head up against the
Mhm.
wall, right? Because the answers are always there. It's always there because we are unbridled, and limitless potential. Absolutely, 300%.
Yes, agreed. Agreed. I suppose the last thing I want to actually examine is, because we examined the creative aspect and so on, is the ability to be grateful, gratitude,
Mm.
the ability to express gratitude, the ability to express contentment. Santosha, it's called in the niyamas, but basically in this concept, that's a look. This is something that is often overlooked.
Mhm,
I'm gonna ask a question to the healers watching this broadcast.
mhm.
You finish the healing, might be Reiki, might be massage therapy, it might be psychotherapy, it might be academic allopathy, like where you're doing internal medicine in a hospital. Did you thank the universe for your skill set? Did you thank the
Mm.
universe for the patient? Did you thank the universe for everything that you are able to impart? Did you do that? Because if you didn't, you're being a little bit of a, yeah.
Yeah. That word.
Right?
Yeah, that word. And I have a little thing. So part of my daily ritual,
Mhm.
and I don't care if my phone's ringing, I don't care if, somebody's knocking at the door. When I wake up, I go into my heart, and I ask that I be in service to Creator, and thank you for all of that stuff, because the universe doesn't hear this or that, or it's just service to Creator. Thank you, thank you. And then I do not get out of bed until I can muster up the kind of excitement that you would have as a child, waking up knowing that there are Christmas presents waiting for you.
Yes. The sense of wonder, the sense of
Yes,
expectation, the hope
yes,
for life, the joie de
yes,
vivre.
yes. It's like I will not let myself get out of, even if I have a bad night, if I had to, like if I, no, you're not getting out of bed until you can get that fire going. That excitement. Okay, thank you, thank you, thank you. Now I can get up and start my day. So it's just a little thing that I do. I'd love to. I'm happy to share it with everyone.
Yes, and it's a very important part of spiritual practice, which I never hear talked about on any of these
Hmm.
sites or whatever that I visit.
Yeah.
Gratitude is important because
Oh,
without
yeah.
it,
Well, when you're in a space of gratitude, that means that you're in your heart,
yes,
and that means that you're actually being from the place of connectivity with source. This is not connected to source.
hmm
This is connected to source,
hmm
right? So when you're in gratitude, even for crap that happens, just because you get cut off on the highway,
hmm
right? Or there's a traffic jam, I say thank you, because who knows? I may be prevented from being in a car crash, or that just may be exactly the time space that I need for something else to happen, that is going to be synchronistic in my life, and create a great outcome. So what's the what is there to gain from getting angry or upset? Absolutely nothing. But if you can see the perfection
hmm
and express gratitude for everything that happens in your life, even the most challenging. Oh, I had a really bad challenging thing happen about a month ago, and it took me a little while to get to gratitude, I can tell you, but I'm there now. However, knowing that I needed to get to gratitude was like, okay, you need to find the reason that you're grateful for this, because at first you don't see it because you're traumatized by it, right? But you need to get to the place where you can find the gratitude why this happened. And when you do that, that accelerates the processing, and it puts everything into perspective, and then you go back into your heart, and it's okay. Anyway, that's just my process.
No, it's actually a very good process because I remember all these little old ladies who kept saying, "Praise God," whenever like, anything good happened, right?
Yeah.
Or even when bad things happen, you say, "God will take care of it."
Yeah.
You remember this little old ladies? They had their own little spiritual practice going on, and it absolutely worked for them. That's how they got to being little old ladies in the first place. Okay.
Right on.
Right? That's how they got to be little old ladies in the first place. Okay? Because they
Yeah.
had their own little spiritual
That's
practice.
right. That's right. That's right. No, and then there's this piece that comes eventually, if you allow it to, where there's no more fear, there's no more false evidence appearing real. You can't die. So what's the worst case scenario? You're going to suffer because you're not going to allow yourself to be in the flow to experience whatever it is that you're here to experience anyway.
Correct.
So might as well just be grateful for it. And
Right.
of course, nothing happens without creators' will and desire. We are an aspect of that. So it's the microcosm within the macrocosm. Once we align with that and that beautiful space of, and it's the creative potential too, right? That's the godliness. It's the same thing. It's just the English language has words to differentiate it. I
Hmm.
honestly think that human potential and divinity and creativity are all the same energy.
Hmm.
And when we allow it to come through and express it in whatever way is okay for us to express it in whatever fashion, whatever medium you have available to yourself, that is creators speaking through us and having creators experience through us, which is the whole purpose of life, isn't it?
Correct. Little hearts floating up to the ceiling.
Yes. Oh, lovely.
Pretty much. All right, so we've come to the end of our broadcast. So I'm going to ask you, first of all, give people a way to get a hold of you. It's running at the bottom on the crawler, but let people know what you do and how to get a hold of you.
Thank you so much, Dave. This has been such a lovely, lovely synchronistic opportunity, and I'm really happy to be part of your network. And I hope that we have lots of collaborations going forward. And I'm going to send you my poetry book, and I want to read some of yours. So people can reach me at Renata Duma at rocketmail.com. That's my direct email. Or you can just go to Rada Lightwork. It's coming up on the bottom too. That's my website. And you can fill out a contact form and get in touch with me that way, because that will come to my email as well. So it's pretty easy, Rada, RADA, lightwork.com. And I look forward to hearing from each and every one of you and facilitating whatever it is that you want to have happen in your universe.
Okay, thank you guys. For those of you who are in the community, I guess we'll be seeing you guys soon. For those of you who aren't in the community watching this broadcast on Facebook, you guys can join the community at community.universalcitizentv.com. Okay, come on in. We have lots of resources and stuff, and we try to make the community better and better. And for those of you who are wondering when the next webinar tutorial is going to be, it's probably going to be next Tuesday or next Saturday. Okay, take care, guys. Bye-bye.
Great. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you. Tell me how you want to be loved.
My name is Juliet Karaman van Schardenberg, and I'll be guiding you through this meditation. Today I'll be leading you through a...
Breathe and relax. Come into oneness. Come into unity, whatever that means to you in this moment. Allow
Divine Love. My name is Juliet Karaman. Today I'm going to give you a direct experience of divine love. The complete, the total. Feeling very, very fine. Sinking deeper and deeper down. So peaceful and so relaxed, letting go. And it